Have you ever had a really good idea about something you'd like to make, which is how I feel about the thing you've seen in the thumbnail, and then before you actually get to start it, you go, oh my gosh, there's a better way to do it? That's what happened to me. I started by making 20 Quilt as you go squares. Make them how you like. These ones were done with my designs and they happen to be 5.5 inches or 14 centimetres square. And it's this design here, and I did it because that's a pretty easy one to do and it's really fast. In fact, it's so fast that each one only takes 2 minutes to stitch out. And these 20 took me 1 hour and 11 minutes. I've got 4 of them like this, where I've got 3/8 of an inch on these 2 adjacent sides and just under 1/4 of an inch on these 2 adjacent sides. The other 16 have all got 3/8 of an inch on one side, but just under 1/4 of an inch on the other 3 sides. That's it. Now I just have to put them together. Got one of the squares that's got the wide pieces on these 2 sides, and I'm going to add a wide side at the top to this one. Zigzag, adjust 2 millimeters long, and off we go. And I can in fact carry on here. I wasn't going to, but thinking about it, I can, because I need to make 4 of the same thing. So I'm going to put another one with the 2 wide ones and a wide one at the top. And just keep going. Now I'm going to add another one that only has 1 wide side on it onto the right end. And separate them into 4 sets of 3. Next I'm going to make 4 sets of 2 with the wide side at the top. Separate them out. Here's one of the original sets of 3, which has a wide side to the top and the right, and now I'm going to add my set of 2 to the left. And I'm just going to do the same with all 4 sections. This has been ridiculously quick, and I now have 4 sets like this, with the wide joining area on the outside. What do I do next? Take 2, put them together and make a big T shape. So I should have 2 T's. I'm still just zigzagging them together. Super easy. I do have to try and keep this bit on the right out of the way though. When you're joining things with this method, try and get the cross pieces to match up. It does make things easier when you're putting your tape or whatever over those joins. Now that I've got 2 of these, I'm going to put some lining in. Stash busting! I'm going to just cut out exactly the same shape as this twice, and then I'm going to stitch it around the edges. That's all. I put this on with a very slight zigzag, and I try not to go all the way around the outside, but rather to do all of the ones that are in one direction and then the ones that are in the other direction. Last edge. Now it all looks pretty good front and back, but I need to start covering joins, and I'm going to start with this one. I've made a bunch of tape. I think I've done 6 of them across the width of the fabric, where I cut it just a little over 1 inch, and I've made it into tape that's about 1/2 inch wide, and it will cover those joins there. But it won't cover the vertical one here because this one is actually going to get covered by wider ribbon. I'm going to start these bits. I've changed to the F foot because the F foot works better for putting tape on. I've moved my needle over to 6.5 or 1/2 millimetre away from the right side. I put the tape over that join. I'm on a straight stitch. I want it to be a little bit longer, 3 mils will do, and I'm just going to stitch by putting this tape on top of the join and keeping the foot next to the edge of the fabric. And go back and stitch the other side of the tape. And I'll move my needle. If you're watching my needle now, I'm going to move it over to the left. So I'm 1/2 mil from the furthest to the left it can be, and I'll stitch again. Essentially, that is like my version 2 of doing Quilt as you go. On the back, that's my lining, and all you can see is the 2 lines of stitching. At this point, everything starts to become 3D. Take your T, bring those 2 sides together, and zigzag down there. We're turning this into this. Once I've got that one piece of tape down, I need to come to the corner between the 2 parts of the T and do a zigzag. My zigzag is 5 millimeters wide and 2 millimeters long. And all I'm going to do as I start stitching is bring these together. There's a little bit of fiddling when you first start. Once you get it going, and that's only taken maybe 1 inch, 2 or 3 centimetres. This is going to be the side, this is going to be the front. Next I cover the zigzag join I just made using tape which matches my lining fabric. On the inside, here's the zigzag that's joined them together. I find it's usually easier to start at the edge to put my tape on and work into that corner. And if I don't get the whole way there, I can do the last little bits of it by hand. Cut that off just so that it's not getting in the way. And stitch in as far as I comfortably can. I'm not actually going to worry about that being an edge that will fray. It's really not going to fray. What I am concerned about is just making sure that I've covered most of that join. And then I'll go back and do the other side. There's the little bit that's poking out, and I can fold it in and hand stitch it down if I want to. The next piece I need to do is to cover on the outside from there and then down. When you're sewing the tape on these ones that have got a turn, it's easier to do the edge where the outside of the turn is first. Lift the foot, turn, and bring the tape down to the piece of seam that's coming towards you. That's where the turn is. Sometimes you need to put a little tuck in it. Sometimes you can just stretch it around the corner. I think I'm going to put a tuck in this one. And there's the tape on the outside. With the halves all done like that, I need to put a piece of tape to cover the join around the middle. And now with these parts done, it's time for the part of this project I've been looking forward to since the moment I thought of it. Gold ribbon. It's 7/8 of an inch wide, and I bought a reel of it. It's actually a lurex ribbon. I'm taking it from the very top, but I'm not actually stitching it on at the bottom because I need it to go over the binding. Otherwise it's not going to look like it goes under the machine. I've changed my needle thread for one that's a mustardy goldy colour, and I'm just laying the ribbon down the same as I would with tape. If I don't exactly cover that, I'm not worrying about it. It's a pretty close colour to the fabric anyway. So I'm just laying it down and I'm going to stitch right on the edge of it. If you miss a few stitches here and there and go over the edge, it doesn't really matter. So I've got a couple of inches to go here, and I'm going to leave about 3 or 4 inches over the edge of that with my ribbon, and then I'm just going to go and stitch down the other side. Back to the beginning and just stitching down the other side. Now I need to finish off the edging on the top where I'm going to have the opening for my hands, and that's just going to be some more of the ribbon. This doesn't have to go the whole way across the 2 squares at the top, and you'll notice I'm leaving most of it off the side because it's going to get turned over the edge to bind. To a certain extent, I'm just winging where I'm putting it. I'm just going to go back, fold that under. In this case, it will be better if I stitch it down underneath by hand. I want this cover to fit my overlocker when I've got threads on it. So I've got the telegraphed down, but with threads underneath, which will make it a little bit higher. And pretty much that goes to the table. So this is the back part of it, but it's actually coming a long way forward. This is the front of it. And what I need to do is to work out how much I take off the back so that everything fits. I've pinned the front and the back together, and there's a bit of an overlap. It's actually about up to that line, or that line on the back. So the back is going to be a little bit narrower than the front. The handle for getting hold of the machine is actually towards the back, so I'm going to need to go further back with that anyway. All I need to do now is trim from the back the amount of fabric that I want to take off here. And then I'll put another piece like this on the back, and then I'll zigzag the sides together, and we're getting pretty close to finished. I trimmed about 2/3 of an inch off that back piece of the cover, and then I zigzagged the sides and going a little way into the top, just the same as I normally do. Covered it on the back with the lining fabric tape, and then put ribbon on over the top of it on the right side. Then I started trying to make my little decoration that you put on a gift. The ribbon I'm going to use for this is making a big mess of everything. It's got little bits of metal coming off it. It's sort of lurex on one side, it looks more glittery on the other, and it's got wires in each side. And I bought it in a roll of 9 feet. Now, everything I can see tells me that I should do this around about just around my hand, but I've had a little bit of a play, and that's not big enough with this sort of ribbon and the way I'm thinking. So I'm going to make it longer, and I'm just rolling it around, probably about 5 or 6 inches is the length I've got it. And now that I've got it all rolled up into a long piece there, I'm going to go to where the piece was in the middle, where I started. And in fact, that needs to be going the other way. I'm right in the middle of it. So I'm right in the middle of it, and I'm going to bring those two edges together, or sides together. And then I'm going to do about half a dozen zigzags right in the middle there. So there it is, and you can see there I've done this little zigzag in the middle. Now this is a bit different to every other tutorial I've seen on these, and I don't know how it's going to go with working. What I need to do is find the middle one, which I think is that one, pull it out. And then the next middle one I'm going to pull out on that side. So I'm going one to each side. I can give them a bit of a twist. And I'm going to do that to all of the loops on this side, and then all of the loops on the other side. Comes out quite fun, even though it's not particularly symmetrical, and I'll need to play with it more to make it look nice. But my text sort of said, not a good idea to put it on top of your overlocker, because not sure if you can see it, but gold snow in Australia in November is just a bit odd. Not a good thing to put on top of your overlocker or sewing machine. don't get anything too glittery. The Lurex ribbon would have been fine for it, but an interesting thing, I've never made one before. So what was the final rundown with this? I had 48 inches of the red fabric that I used on the outside, and there's about 11 inches of it left. So you would need a little tiny bit over the yard. A metre will do you fine, but you need to go a little bit over a yard. The lining fabric, I used a yard, about 95 centimetres will get you there. The Lurex ribbon that went around the sides, I had a 9-foot reel of that. It was 7/8 inch wide. The glitter covered ribbon was the same length, and it has deposited glitter everywhere. On my nose, my face, my hands, everywhere. Don't go for glitter. Not a good move. When I was making the squares, I used random bits of fabric that would just fit in the hoop. So it was a bit of stash busting stuff. And the wadding I used was a cotton wadding, and it was just 20 pieces that were 6 or 7 inches square and then trimmed back. This has been a fun thing to make, and I'm really glad that I spent the time to do it when I got that, oh, I could make a package idea. And you could do this for all sorts of other things. Air fryers maybe, toasters, you name it. You could put a cover on it if that's what you want to do. And you might find yourself laughing hysterically as a result. Hope you've had fun with this one like I have, and I'll see you next time.